Greetings and welcome to the Power of Vintage. These last few weeks, I've found myself a bit preoccupied with playing Baldur's Gate 3. It's been an absolute blast. I thought I got my fill playing through the early access part of the game, but as the new final version came out, or not new, well, the final version came out, it's been an absolute delight, and it's really exceeded my expectations, honestly. And while playing the game, found myself thinking of the precursors, right? So where it pulled a lot of its influences and then takes it to the next step further, right? The games like Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, the Icewind Dale series, Star Wars, The Old Republic, etc., Knights of the Old Republic, etc. And sometimes thinking of those pedigrees, where is this coming from? Ever since I was 6 years old, and my mom forced my older brother to let me play D&D with him and his friends, I've been a big fan of RPGs. You know, the pen and paper variety, but as soon as I found games of that sort on computers, I was hooked. Pen and paper is still fun. I still enjoy it. But at the same time, maybe I'm a little lazy, maybe it's a little too difficult to get all the friends together, a little more of the instant satisfaction, whatever it is. I really found myself drawn to the RPGs, the computer RPGs in particular. Now, in my mind, many of the RPGs we find today find a lot of their history in the Ultima series. Now, the Ultima series isn't the only RPG that came out, isn't even the earliest, but in many ways, I think of it as one of the best. And it introduced a lot of new mechanics over time that we still see today. But in reality, you know, of all these, and even those beyond these, from the early 1980s all the way through 1999, when you had the Ultima 9 Ascension come out, right? I've loved them all. The one that stood out the most to me during that time is Ultima 4 as the best, maybe not the best technically, maybe not the best in many other ways, but the one that has the most memories for me. And I think introduced a lot of the early concepts that we still see today and that the Ultima series built off of. I love booting up this game, specifically Ultima 4, on these 6 computers here, and actually taking a look at some of the differences, because each one is slightly different. Each version, whether it's the Amiga, Commodore 64, Apple II, Atari ST, Atari 8-bit, DOS versions, there's a lot of similarities. The game is essentially the same. The gameplay is essentially the same, but there are some distinct differences between them. And we're going to take a look today at Ultima 4 on each of these Ultima 4 on each of these 6 different systems. See how they play, see what the differences are, what the similarities are, and walk through it. Let's get to it. There are 3 awesome features of modern CRPGs that I associate with Ultima 4, having either created or at least having made mainstream. And these 3 features specifically are, first off, number 1, a game objective that is more than just destroying the big baddie. Party members that you need to find and ask to join you in your epic quest. And then also in most versions, not all of them obviously, but in most versions, music was an integral part. And something that I really love about this Ultima 4 is that the music is dynamic. It changes depending upon the scene you find yourself in, the area you find yourself in. While it isn't perfect, it was really cool to go into Lord British's castle and hear the music in Lord British's castle. That was very different than what was in the village, which is very different when you're traveling, which is very different than when you're in combat, and different than when you're in a dungeon. These are things that are absolutely awesome, and you see them continuing on further and further. This is the first game in which I actually saw this. Examples, you think about the Infinity Engine games, the Baldur's Gate 1, 2, Icewind Dale series. You have Planescape Torment. You also have the Fallout series, Dungeon Siege, Mass Effect, Dragon's Age, Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and even now, as I mentioned earlier, Baldur's Gate 3, and many, many, many more beyond those. All right, enough gushing over the awesomeness of the ultimate Ultima 4. Let's get started, and we'll go to with the Apple II. All right, we are now recording Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar. Ultima 4 for the Apple II. Take a look down here. Lovely little computer here. And I know I'm recording a TV screen, but I don't have a video capture device at the moment. One of the first things you notice is this is over composite. This is not S-Video. The quality is a little fuzzy, but still, colors are good. It's a nice image. I like it. One of the nice things about the Apple is we can activate a Mockingboard. We'll activate 1. And let's go for 3, 4. And now we have the music. And we'll just initiate a new game. I should just put caps lock on all together. Power of Vintage Pub. Let's go. Mail today. Awesome game. You can see my reflection in there. It's fantastic. Oh, lovely sound effects. There we go. We'll skip through this as quickly as it'll let me go. One of the things about the Apple II version is that in order to get this music, you have to have 128 kilobytes of RAM as well as a Mockingboard. There we go. Now, I don't know if that's just my version that does that, but hey, a little stutter here and there. It's well worth the awesome music having in the background. I like to play a bard, so we're going to play Compassion. Honesty. Let's go for honesty. Oh, spirituality. That's awesome. Oh, we'll pick spirituality again. We got to pick compassion. Like I said, I want a bard. There we go. And here we go. Now, one of the things about the 8-bit computers, moving your character is a bit of a pain. Oh, we got to swap disks here. Let's do that. And there we go. You can see those keystrokes. That is not fun. Especially if you're used to the nice traditional layout on a modern keyboard. The nice thing here is you have both the sound effects as well as the music. Fantastic. Colors are great. A little bit of, you don't see that here, some purplish on the main character, but it is what it is. And it looks good for the most part. All right, let's move on to the next one now. We're going to go to the Atari 8-bits. All right, let's power this guy off. All right, we're back now. Let's take a look at the Atari 8-bit version. Now, this version, we'll start off by getting it booted. A floppy disk here. I'm lucky enough to have a floppy disk drive as well as disks for this guy. Power on the lovely floppy drive. And here we go. And we load Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar. There you can see me in the reflection there. All right, so unfortunately, this version doesn't have any music. While it does have sound effects, it doesn't have any music associated with it. And from what I've read, this is due to the limitations of this specific computer here, the Atari 800, that was limited by 48K. The later computers had more than that, and probably could have potentially used music at some point, but unfortunately, we're stuck with a version that does not have it. Now, one of the things that's a little bit different about, or you call it a downside of the Atari 8-bit version, it uses color artifacting in order to get the colors on the screen in this highest resolution mode. So if I were to switch over to S-Video, because this computer provides S-Video out, you would only get a black and white view, as we can see here, as I switch to S-Video. So while this is a very crisp and clean image, much crisper and cleaner than the color version, it's only black and white. And so the computer uses that artifacting system in order to achieve the colors. The other interesting aspect, as you can see, the dragon up there is breathing green fire, and the cannonball shots from the boat are green as well. This largely has to do with the fact that the Atari has with the color artifacting, has an interesting color system. So if you were to load this up on another Atari 8-bit computer, you might have a different color mix with green trees and blue, or not green trees, but actually red trees, blue water, and whatnot. So interesting version here. Again, I would say the keyboard keys for movement, the arrow keys, I think are a little bit better than what you saw in the Apple II, which was just a simply straight line. So these are somewhat clustered together, but you have the up and down on the top and then the left and right below. Is it okay? It works. It works. This is the first version that I actually experienced as a kid on my friend's computer at that time. Let's see here. Let's initiate a new game. Let's call this Power of Vintage. There we go. And you'll see how this works as well. Just it's very, very similar. The graphics are almost identical to what you saw on the Apple II, other than the fact that this is using that color methodology, which is actually very similar to what was used in the Apple II, but is different than what was used on the Commodore 64. All right, so we can see this here. Lovely, lovely, lovely. You got the sounds similarly as well. The other big benefit is you get the Atari loading from disk sound. Call it a feature, call it a benefit, you can call it whatever you'd like. Now I would say that this is similar to what you would find in an Apple II that did not have a mocking board, or didn't have enough RAM for the audio, or the music rather, not the audio. So let's just see here. Let's go make this the sounds. I'll pick spirituality. We'll pick honesty. Oh, valor. Compassion. Gotta pick compassion. We gotta have a bard at the end of the day. Ooh, let's go spirituality. And we go compassion. And then it loads from disk again. And we swap discs. The Britannia disc here. So as you can see, you have the sound, very similar to what you saw on the Apple II. All right. We are now going to move on to what I would consider is the best of the 8-bits. We'll go on to the Commodore 64. All right, now we're at the Commodore 64 version of Ultima 4. As I mentioned earlier, this really takes the cake when it comes to the 8-bit version. It has all the awesomeness. It has sound and music together. It has a decent control scheme on the keyboard, not worrying about some crazy arrow keys that are in weird positions. It also has the S-Video clarity graphics, not using artifacting for the colors, and the colors make sense. And all in all, this is an excellent, excellent version of Ultima 4. So let's boot this one up now. Zoom in a little bit on this lovely screen. All right. Adjust the camera just a smidge so we get this lovely screen. All right. You got the wonderful blueness, and we will just load accordingly. I can't say how much I love this one. The music is excellent. It's a fantastic version. I'll occasionally just turn it on in the background just to have the music playing because nostalgia. I guess the one downside of this version, in my mind, is the loveliness of the Commodore 64 loading times. So this is going to take a bit of time. Now, obviously, there are fast loaders. There's all sorts of cool stuff that can be done to actually bypass a lot of this. That said, I'm running this stock basic, and we'll have to probably fast forward through the loading section. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here all day waiting for this thing to load. All right, here we go. Nice screen quality, and here comes this music. Very clear music. Love that loading time. Looks familiar. Play it again. This is one of those games that requires a fast loader, really. It's just amazing the difference between this and the Apple II, as well as even the Atari 8-bit versions from a loading perspective. All right, here we go. Finally with the cards. We go spirituality. Oh man, sacrifice. Let's go sacrifice. Oh, never humility. We're never humble. Let's go for valor. All right, we got to go for the bard. Let's get compassion. Oh, we're more valorous than sacrificial. Oh man, got to pick the compassion. Compassion, and here we go. And we load again. I swear, this one, the Commodore 64, just if I didn't fast forward through the load times, we would double or triple the length of this video. Obviously, using fast loaders is the way to go. All right, here we go. Loading Britannia. Oh, look at that. Great graphics, music, and sound. This one has it all. Including the slow loading times. An excellent version of Ultima IV. Again, my favorite of all the 8-bits. Now let's move on to the PC, or the DOS version. We'll go there next. All right, here we are with the DOS version of Ultima IV. Running it a little on a little overpowered system. This is a PS2 286, and we will be running it from the hard drive. Adjust this just a little bit. All right. That's a lot of stuff. There we go. All right. Ultima. Now the PC is nice because it has updated graphics that more take advantage of the system itself. Even more so than what you would have seen on the Commodore 64. Unfortunately for this version, the silence from lack of music is almost deafening in my mind. As you can see the character sprites that are much more colorful. They're not the simple white color as what you saw previously. The trees, the creatures up top, the dragon and the demon, there's more colors associated with them as well. Much more detail. All right, so let's kick this off and do what we do before. Power Vintage. It's a step above what you saw before. You still have sound effects from the internal beeper speaker that you have on these early PCs. But there is no option if you had a sound card to be able to get music out. You clearly see the differences in the graphics here. And you'll see a lot of similarities between this PC version as well as the Amiga and the Atari ST. Almost identical from a graphics perspective. All right, we will be compassionate. Never humble. We will be spiritual. Valorous. There we go. And since we want to be a bard, we will be a bard. And since this is loading from hard drive, it loads substantially faster, and even than what you'll see on the Amiga and the Atari ST. This is pretty rock solid. Now you also have the controls from the nice arrow keys that you have, the inverted T. And you have some sounds, some simple sounds as it stands. But really, even versus the Atari, as well as the Apple II or any others, even these sounds, these are the most simple sounds. So from a graphics perspective, excellent. Loading perspective, because you can load it from hard drive, excellent. Audio, this is the absolute worst of the bunch. All right, we're going to move on now next to the Amiga. All right, now we are on to the Amiga version of Ultima 4, and actually the first version that will show that has mouse support specifically. All right, let's show this Amiga 500 a little bit of love and boot Ultima 4. All right, and as you can see here, we got our lovely screen that is 15 kilohertz compatible through the VGA port, which is so awesome. Delighted to have this. Mouse, we're good here. Now the Amiga version has probably the best sound of all of them for the music and sound. Now the unfortunate side is that because of how it was designed, you had to pick either music or sound effects, which is a bit on the unfortunate side. And graphically, it is virtually identical to the Atari ST version. Right here, let's move on to initiate a new game. Oops. This also looks very similar to what you saw on the PC version, the DOS version, but I still think it looks a little bit better. To be honest, this could have taken much better advantage of the capabilities of the Amiga. I think the Amiga users here would probably have called it a lazy Atari ST port. Oh, we're never humble. We're more compassionate, spiritual, so much faster. All right, here we go. In goes the play disc. There we go. There we go. Well, actually, no, in this case, you do have the sound and the music on at the same time. The Atari ST is the one that doesn't have both. All right, there we go. On the Amiga, Ultima 4. I would say the best version in almost every circumstance of the ones we look at today. Now we're going to move on to the Atari ST. We are now at the Atari ST, last of the versions that I'll be talking about today. And the Atari ST comes with a slightly different set of equipment required, at least to get the most out of it. In this case, I have a MIDI-capable keyboard. The one advantage the Atari ST has pretty much over all the others is that it has the MIDI output capability. And let's just pop you in and get you started. Now we're powering on the Yamaha keyboard here in this case. One thing to note is that at the intro, you probably don't want both the standard sound or music and keyboard. They're just slightly out of tune with each other, and it sounds kind of funny. You'll see, you'll hear it in just a second. Graphically, this is pretty much identical to the Amiga version. The music in this game is similar to what you heard on the Amiga. Actually, I still would think the Commodore 64 and the Amiga sound better in general, but it sounds fine. Now, if we were to turn down the volume on this, and just have the audio from the keyboard, you may or may not like it. But the cool thing is that this MIDI output could be configured. Those who are more capable with MIDI output are able to do some amazing things with this. Because it's simply the notes, you can actually configure each of the individual channels to have different sounds and be represented by different instruments, which is really, really cool. All right. And we will make the last of the bards. And we'll turn the sound up a bit. As you can see, this looks very, very similar to the Amiga. Not identical, but similar. You see some of the jail bars, possibly. You may or may not see them. I see them. This is just using the 15 kilohertz capability on this display. It isn't perfect. We'll turn this music down. And we'll just listen to the piano. I think the Amiga just has a slight advantage over the Atari ST in graphics in this case. Oh man, I gotta go for spirituality. Valor. Justice. I know it's gonna be compassion. Compassion. Spirituality. And compassion. Here we go. We'll insert the play disc in this case. And these are the originals that I had growing up as a young lad. I got rid of everything, except for the box, the manuals, the map, and the discs. Actually, I did not keep the box. box I did not have. Everything else I kept. So it's actually fun looking at the old manuals and the notes I had in them as well. One of the downsides for the Atari ST is that you get to keep the music or the sound. We'll turn off the MIDI for the moment. Turn down the MIDI. But as you move or take any action, you don't have any sound effects. So you either have the sound effects or you have the music. So I can turn the music off, and now I have the sound effects, which is great. And this is where the MIDI comes in. The Commodore 64 has sound and music. The Apple II with the Mockingbird has it. The Amiga has it, and the Atari has it only if you have MIDI output. So in this case, I actually really, really like this one. And look at this. Let's go into the Lord British's castle and hear how this sounds. And so hear how the music changes. All right. This is Ultima 4. Honestly, this is something that I love. This is an RPG that I love. I think had made a big change in RPGs in general. Light years change because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. This is a fun game on fun computers, and really, I really appreciate you joining me today on the journey. If you think I'm full of it, and that you don't like the CRPG, or that there's someone that's more definitive, substantially better than Ultima 4, share it in the comments below. If you think that my assessments of each of the versions is bad, put it in the comments below. If you want to tell me that my criticism of the slow loading time of the Commodore 64 is well-deserved or not deserved, put it in the comments below. All right? If you like this kind of content and would like to see more, please like and subscribe. All right? Signing off at this moment. Thank you.